Well, how's everybody at Evansville Raptor Con Day 2, version 4.0? Yes. So this is a very, very special fan panel, personally. I'm just geeking out right now. I'm going to try not to pass out. It's going to be fine. So, who knows Sean Gunn as Kirk from Gilmore Girls? You're my people. You can sit on one side. No. Guardians of the Galaxy? Okay. Suicide Squad? All right. I think we can all get along then, okay? Would you like to meet Sean Gunn? Well, here he is. Woo!
Hi, everybody. Look at all these toys.
Yes, I thought I'd bring my entire collection just so you could see. I'm like, I really am a super fan. It's not
I
weird.
thought it was in case I got bored during the panel, I could
End
start
scene.
to
Thank
play
you.
with them and do some. We're gonna have some adventures.
Actually, I don't know if everyone knows, but Sean and the Gunn family are from not far away, to the west of us, as far as west as you can get, St. Louis. So I don't know if you like the Cardinals and peanuts, or if you have a peanut allergy.
Of course, I love the Cardinals.
Okay, I was like,
And
of
I
course
love
I have a
peanuts,
peanut
too,
allergy.
I'll have to share these with people. I think I don't.
Just take them with
It's
you.
great. No, I
Keep
love.
it as a gift. It's yours.
I still love the Cardinals. Thank you very much. That's
You're
very
welcome.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yes.
There's still Cardinals fans around here. Or, yeah.
See, we're a split area. We're Cubs
Yeah,
or Cardinals.
right.
Today we're all Cardinals. Am I right? Yes. That is the correct answer. So let's get right into.
Have Alien T-shirt. That's pretty cool.
She was here first. Just so you know. She was here before me. So let's start with Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
So you may or may not know that Sean had 2 different roles and a million jobs in Gilmore Girls. How did that work out?
I didn't really have 2 different roles. I was in the first episode. The character that I played was just called the DSL installer in the script, and he introduces himself as Mick. But then later, when Amy brought the character back, she forgot that she had given him a name because he was just listed as the DSL installer, and so she gave him a second name. So unless you're into conspiracy theories, perhaps he's a very similar looking brother of Kirk's. But it really was just, it's more reflective of the way TV shows were done then, which is, now you write the whole season before you start shooting. So you everything is all pretty much planned out. But, we were going week to week then, and she just didn't remember what she had done a couple of weeks earlier. And so, but I certainly got to do a lot of things on Gilmore Girls over the years.
DSL, for the young ones, that's the internet back in the day.
Yes.
Like, what's a DSL? You can ask later. You can Google it.
It really does age the show because having a DSL installer come to your home was really only a thing for like a very narrow window. It was only a thing for like a couple of years, really. So you can kind of age the show. It's like counting its rings,
So as we go through the seasons with Kirk, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but you were kind of a bad guy for a while. Like you were tricking people and I don't know if anyone got that undertone or not. Trying to sell things on the side and doing all these side businesses. And Luke's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, I mean, Kirk's, he's a pain in the ass, excuse my language. And that's just what his lot in life is. So he's going to annoy you and bug you. And, he's like a 10-year-old in a grown man's body, which is what my wife says that I am now.
Also, by the way, your wife is amazingly beautiful. I don't know if you've seen her.
She's great.
I don't know if you've seen her or not, but you should.
She's great.
How long have you guys
talented.
been married?
5 years. 5 years.
Once it gets to 18, you're just like, I don't know.
Oh,
But you're already there, like, 5, 6.
Yeah, no, she's great. She's a very talented filmmaker as well.
So when you've got the script and day to day it changes, a lot of people, I don't know where my son is, he says, it's too scripted, this Gilmore Girls. Nobody talks that fast. Nobody can come back that fast. And I'm like, that's just because you can't keep up, right?
Well, I mean, I think that it's first of all, it's not for everybody, although it's certainly for a lot of people based on how long it's lasted. But I think that the whole idea behind Gilmore Girls is that it was a modern show, but it had this throwback quality of being like the old film comedies of like Howard Hawks and Preston Sturges and that kind of thing. Which is I think one of the reasons I ended up on the show was that I knew that history of films and I understood the genre very well. So it is. I don't think he's wrong that it's super scripted, but a lot of great like if the scripts are good, then it's okay to be super scripted. I mean, plays, Shakespeare is super scripted, so to speak. So it's like there's there's a style and a tone to it that is unusual, which I think is one of the things. There's a lot of things, a lot of reasons I think the show has lasted and that people still like it. But one of them is just simply that it's unique. There just weren't other shows like that had a similar style, and so I think that's one of the reasons it's lasted for so long.
And if anyone hasn't, it's on Netflix. You can binge it all day long. I've been streaming it through my Bluetooth in my car, by the way. It's just fun to listen to again. I do feel like we were cheated out of a season 8, even though we did get a year in the life. I don't have a lot of closure.
Well, I mean, the fact that Amy was able to do a year in the life, she was able to kind of end the show the way that she wanted to. But yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer that things went the way that they did, and then Amy and Dan didn't stay on in season 7, and so the writers who had to step in did a very, very good job of attempting to take over, but it's very difficult to do that when you have a showrunner for that long, and then all of a sudden they leave. It's very hard to keep a show together. So, it's one of those things. I mean, in some ways, I think that there's a little bit of a you leave the audience wanting more quality to it that probably enhances its value a little bit.
So when you went back to do that, was it just like you jumped right back in? You were Kirk, or did you need to sit in the gazebo a bit?
I was definitely worried when I went back to do a year in the life because I didn't know if I didn't know how it would feel doing it again after at that time it would have been 9 years since I had done it, and it was so simple. I think we did a couple of takes the first day, and I was like, oh, it's right there. It's like it comes right back, which is, to me, that's one of the most fun things about playing a character is that when you do them for long enough, and then it becomes like the most comfortable T-shirt you have in your drawer, the one you've had forever. That's just it just feels right when you put it on, and that kind of became what I think that character felt like to me. But it was a hectic time. I was shooting Guardians 2 simultaneously, so we were like, I was literally going back and forth. I would shoot, Guardians 2 on Monday and Tuesday, and Kirk on Thursday, and then go back and do Guardians 2 again, flying back and forth from Los Angeles to Atlanta. So it was crazy.
That's a lot. So we have to ask, spoiler alert, Rory's pregnant. So do you think maybe, is it Dean? Is it Jess? Is it Logan? Is it someone else?
Who's the father
baby daddy.
of the baby?
Yeah.
I think it's the Wookiee.
See, I knew. I didn't even give you that option.
We all.
Or was it
think
Kirk?
it's the Wookiee?
Was it Kirk?
How dare you?
He said it, not
Your
me.
mind out of it.
No, but you did save the day with the wedding, and that was just amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Moving on to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
So, the movie comes out. I think a lot of obviously diehard comic book fans are like, yes. And then people like me are like, I'm not really sure what this is, but I'll watch it because Kirk's in it, which confused me. And then I'm like, Chris Pratt. So that hooked me right there, both of you. But it was kind of a different project to even begin with. And they say you shouldn't work with your family. However, I don't know if you know who Sean's brother is, but he's kind of a big deal.
Is that a question?
I don't know, is it?
He is kind of a big deal.
James Gunn. James Gunn?
Well, my brother and I, but we've been working together since we were kids on various projects. So I think it was pretty natural that, we always have, when we can, we work together. When there's a role for me, I do it. When there's not, I don't. So it's easier for me to work with James than really anybody else in the world, because we have such a shorthand when you work together with someone else, especially when it's my brother, but that part of it doesn't even matter as much. It's like you work together so many times over the years, you get a shorthand for communicating with one another, and you understand the other's creative process really well. And so like, I'll work with my brother forever when we can.
And he's the oldest, you're the youngest of 6.
Correct.
That's quite a dynamic there.
So it wasn't it's not too hard for me to have him be my boss when I show up on set, because it's like, for those of you with older siblings, you get it.
So you guys didn't just work together, just backtracking a little bit on this. I did notice a couple of credits for Glee. I've never watched an episode of Glee, so I did this week because it said you were in it.
Oh my God.
Did you have one line or 2 words? I'm like, what am I watching here?
I did. I'll make this story brief because I don't think it's super interesting. But I auditioned for Glee, and I played, and I had a little scene, and they said and then when I got to set, the director wanted me to play it totally different than how he hadn't been the one who cast me, and he wanted me to play it totally different than how I played it on my tape, and on my audition tape. And so I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't make sense to play all of a sudden to change it up and play it in a totally different way. And it's like, no, that's what I want. That's what I want. And I was like, okay. And so I did it that way. And then they cut the whole scene. And so that was my time on Glee.
I was like, what? You had like 2 words.
It was a long time ago.
I fast forwarded a lot, let me tell you. I was just, where's he going to be? And then my son Chase also was like, he's in an episode of The Rookie.
Yeah.
It just pop up everywhere. You just never know.
Yeah. And that one, I don't know.
It just happened.
An episode of The Rookie. Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize that the technology, everybody thinks it's all just, digitally remastered and everything with Guardians of the Galaxy, but there are so many real life built sets and kind of old school filming. And then everyone's like, I don't understand how he's Rocket. Explain that to us.
Well, I assist in the creation of Rocket. It takes a whole team of people to create that character. And before we shot the first movie, the voice actor had not yet been cast. And my brother knew that he wanted somebody. They were looking at people. They knew they were going to get a name for it. But in the filming process, my brother James knew that he wanted an actor that he had worked with before, that he trusted, to sort of play Rocket on set and be able to have a real sort of voice for the character for the other actors, so that when the other actors were playing the scene, they weren't looking at a blank space or looking at a tennis ball on a stick or hearing a PA with a book in their hands, just reading lines, but that they had a real sort of that the scenes would work. And so he asked me to do it. I knew that I was going to London to play Kraglin, who I think was just called like the first mate, basically in the script, although his name was in there. But and they said, but I'd also like you to help us in playing Rocket, and wasn't really sure how we were going to do it. So did the table read, and then after the table read, we had the first rehearsal for some of the scenes with the cast. And I just kind of got down on my hands and knees and started playing Rocket from the height where he would be. And I'm very limber, or at least I was in 2013. And I just started doing it from down there, and I'd actually studied in acting school how to play animals and stuff like that, which came in handy a little bit in terms of movement. And it really worked, because even though it looks super strange, it only looks strange for a minute, and then you get used to it. And so for the other actors to, when they were looking at Rocket, to be able to look down and see a pair of eyes, where there are supposed to be eyes, it really helps the scene. So I did that for the other actors, and we did that for the first couple scenes, and then the visual effects supervisor, Steph Soretti, who's a genius, honestly, went to my brother and he said, this is really, really helpful for us to have a visual reference for Rocket, because they were doing Rocket completely from scratch. They can't use a mocap suit the way that they do with like the way Andy Serkis would for Gollum or for Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies, because those characters are very humanoid. So when you put on the mocap suit, the digital translation was needed less work. But for Rocket, because he's got that long face that's nothing like a human's, it just the mocap suit is useless. There's not much that you can do. So instead, they have to animate the character from scratch. So what they would do is they would watch my physical performance as Rocket and use things like where my eyes were going, what my hands were doing. They started to use my physical performance as reference, and it worked. And so it was really helpful. They ended up using it. Bradley Cooper was cast later in the process and provides this amazing vocal performance for Rocket that he's done now for 6 movies. And we just kind of kept with that same process. So I always look at it as like a relay team that creates Rocket. And it's basically my brother James writes the script and conceives of what the character's doing. He passes the baton to me. I do it on set with the other actors, so we get this kind of loose framework for what the character does. I pass the baton to the visual effects team, who then really starts to animate the characters. They use what I do. Sometimes they throw it out. Sometimes, they can. That's the one thing about my performances. They don't have to use all of it. So if there's something that they don't like, they can just change it. And so they then have this framework where they start to animate the character. The other performances are built around that. Then they kind of extract what I did, and you just see what Rocket's doing. And then Bradley Cooper he brings the whole thing together. He's the last leg, and he comes in and kind of makes the whole thing a complete performance. He basically ties the thing together. So anyway, that's a long answer, but it's been a lot of years. I did it a long time. I think I'm pretty sure I'm retired from playing Rocket because I turned 50 this year, and I don't think I can physically do it anymore. It was pretty taxing on my feet and my ankles and my legs and things like that. But I'm really proud of it, and it was such a weird thing. It's the perfect example of how I always tell actors, like, don't try to guide your career too much, because it's always going to go in a direction that you're never, ever going to be able to foresee. And that certainly happened with me and Rocket.
And so when you watched Volume 3, I was not prepared to cry my eyes out for half of the movie, 3/4 of the movie. Was that emotional for you, watching Rocket go through all of that?
Well, I was prepared to cry my eyes out because I had read the script and I had already cried my eyes out when we played the scene with Lila, the scene where Lila, it's the only time I've ever acted in a scene where I really couldn't keep it together, and I really had a hard time when Lila comes back and they're interacting. So I knew what I was in for, but I still shed some tears anyway. But yeah, the whole experience of Guardians 3 was very emotional. Just the doing of it, the fact that we finally did it after too long, and it was really, I love the movie. I'm really proud of it. And yeah, I mean, I'll leave it there. Yeah.
I mean, the evolution of Kraglin, even if you go back to the first, it's so different, obviously, because then you get the whistle and whatnot, the passing of the whistle. That was pretty emotional too.
Yeah, I mean, Kraglin has a really wonderful arc over the course of the 3 movies. He sort of learns what his values are, and what's important to him, and how much loyalty and doing right really are what he's about. That and he doesn't know that in the first movie. So it's wonderful to be able to play a character who really goes somewhere.
So speaking of that, if you've seen the end and the post-credit scenes, whatnot, of 3, the Ravengers kind of look like they might be doing their own thing, which you are one of. Is there something to look forward to?
No,
yes.
No, at the end of 3, Kraglin is with the Guardians at that point. So he's not with the Raptors anymore.
It seemed like you guys were kind of making your own Guardians. You were becoming...
Oh, well, Rocket takes over the group. So, they leave. You guys have seen this, right? Yeah. So,
spoiler alert.
So Rocket takes over the Guardians, and it's with Kraglin and the whole team there.
I'm just asking,
and
maybe
Groot, Adam Warlock, and yeah.
Is there something maybe that we could look forward to in the future with that new group?
I have no idea about that at all. I really don't. I would. Let's put it this way: if Marvel calls, I'll pick up the phone.
That's like the hotline. Yes. Also, I guess if DC calls, you'll be answering.
Well, I'm definitely working a lot with DC right now. So I've got Creature Commandos coming out in December, and then Superman next year, and some other things. So I'm very, very excited about that stuff.
Do you have anything super that you can let us know, Mr. Lord?
Nope.
Well, I just finished binging Supergirl, so I'm a little familiar with possibly a character that could be in something that we can't really talk about, but it's going to be super, right?
I love the script. I think it's great, and everything I've seen, I'm very, very excited for people to see it.
So people are not going to be upset with the new Superman.
Everybody's going to be. I mean. Not everybody's going to be upset, but someone is always upset. It's like you guys know that so well, right? It's like you can't, particularly with a property that big, when you're dealing with Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or whatever, and it's like there's too many factions that won't budge in how they think that it's supposed to be done. So you're always going to disappoint somebody. But at least hopefully that disappointment comes in that kind of well, I didn't like the suit, but the movie was pretty good.
I mean, whatever. I'll watch the next one.
That kind of thing. But I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. But I think it's simply
what's happening.
I don't know. Is this cracking up? I think it's I think the movie's really cool. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I love the script, and everything I've seen, it looks awesome.
And what's the date for that?
That date is July 11th of next year.
Very exciting. Super exciting. I'm just going to keep saying super.
Yeah. But Creature Commandos comes out in December on Max, and it's really cool. It's an animated series, and if you're into it, it's pretty hardcore, but it's awesome.
So what was that like doing voice work versus being on a set?
It's a different kind of gig. It's like I've done it before for for some stuff. I did a video game, and I've done some commercials and some promo type stuff that I've done. So it's a similar skill, but it's a little bit different. You're just really using your voice, and there aren't other actors there, so that can be the most difficult part. But although I think for some of the scenes in Creature Commandos, they did get the actors together to be able to play off one another. but not for too much of it.
And you got to be a part of some of the Avengers excitement. And I know that you were pretty sure your scene was cut in Endgame. I went back last night just to double check and watch, and I didn't see you in it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, no, I know it was cut. It was.
But I looked and we paused. I'm like, maybe behind Groot, maybe right there.
Yeah, no. They, yeah, I don't know. Joe Russo told me that he thought my ship is in this big wide shot where you see everybody. That he thinks you see my ship in the background. And I'm not so sure about that, but I'm not. I was not too surprised by that. I worked as Rocket for a year on the Avengers movies, so I was around for so much of it, and it was really cool. It was a very interesting and awesome experience working with all those great movie stars, really, and just kind of being on on a set like that is a once in a lifetime thing. So I got to be a part of it. I feel as though I played a role in those movies. So when they cut my little piece as Kraglin, I was not surprised. That's the business. That happens all the time.
You know you were there, so it's fine.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So when you were working with them or anyone that you've worked with, do you kind of fanboy out a little bit, or are you just kind of like, everybody's a person, it's fine?
Yeah, no, not really. I wouldn't. I don't tend to get. I'll get nervous periodically when I meet celebrities, but it's outside the workplace, and it's usually people like I freaked out over meeting Elliot Gould, and but meeting the Avengers, is different. It's like there's a little bit of nerves that come in, but I'm at work, so it's like, it's not, it's kind of like, it's less like meeting a celebrity in another setting than it is like being being on a basketball team where I'm on the bench. I'm like maybe the last man on the bench, and the stars are the stars, but I'm still a member of the team, so I still have a job to do. Like I don't, like, if I got really starstruck by other actors, I think it would affect my work in a negative way.
That's why I'm not an actor or actress. So now I just forgot what I was going to say, because see, here I am fangirling all of a sudden. If you want to work with anybody, who would it be?
Well, Elliot Gould's getting very old. I don't know. You see, in my line of work, you're just setting yourself up when you answer that question. Because anything I would like, it's always going to go another way than the way I want it to go. As soon as you say, this is what I want, that's the one thing that's not going to happen. So I try to avoid that kind of thing for the most part.
There's no manifesting here. It's just.
But there's so many directors whose work that I love. I'll point out, like, Patrick Somerville is a creator. He created he worked on The Leftovers and did the limited series Station 11 for HBO, and I think his work is magnificent. So there's a name I'd love to work with.
Well, you got to work with Kevin Bacon, so 6 degrees of that, right?
Kevin's a great guy. I had worked with him on Super many years ago. So I had met Kevin on Super and then saw him again when we did the holiday special. I
rewatched it last night and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, shouldn't this be David Hasselhoff?
No.
I mean, just because, Star-Lord was like, oh my gosh,
But in the first movie, Star-Lord says, we have a great hero on a planet named Kevin Bacon. So that's what the callback is. So no, it wouldn't be Hasselhoff. It's got to be Bacon.
See, he knows. He was there. Anything else working that we can talk about? Obviously, you've got the December project. We've got Superman.
Yeah, and should be doing some other stuff for DC. I did a couple indie movies that maybe will come out next year. We'll we'll see. And I'm writing a graphic novel right now, which I just announced at San Diego Comic Con with Dynamite Entertainment, who does The Boys in addition to just like a whole bunch of other really cool properties. And it's really cool. I've never done something like this, and it's kind of what I'm spending most of my time doing right now is writing that, which is awesome.
Have you seen The Boys?
I have.
Okay. My son has, and I'm like, I don't know if he should be watching this. I haven't seen it. He's right there. He's 16. He knows way more than we do.
I don't have kids. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Show them all.
It's totally fine. Totally fine. So I will give a shout out to Michael Rosenbaum, my buddy, your buddy.
Yeah, he's the best.
You were on his Inside of You podcast a long time ago,
I guess
2019.
Yeah.
Not that I stalk anything. But any plans to come back? I mean, it's a really deep conversation. If you look it up, it's on obviously the
He hasn't
YouTube,
invited me back.
Are you kidding me? I will call him right now. We'll do it.
Let's see.
I'm threatening. I will do it right now. Well, you had your brother on recently, and so that was a really in-depth conversation.
Oh, that's good. I didn't actually. I should listen to that. I know he's. Well, I heard him. He's been on a couple times. I heard. I didn't. Was he on recently?
Recently, and it's actually the top one.
Oh, cool. Oh, good. I'll actually. I got something to listen to at the airport later.
If you go to the most popular, it's the most popular.
Okay. Cool.
See, I was researching. You're like, did you ever do it again? I mean, there were so many.
No, I did it once.
There were so many deep conversations that he gets into that we're not going to do here, but more about your life and in between projects and stuff. So, I mean, it gets really personal, but you were okay with that.
Yeah, it's cool. Oh, yeah, that's his job. It's a great podcast Inside of You. It's really good. But he's good at talking about real stuff.
Yeah, just get into it. So, getting to it, I know we have questions from the audience. We don't have any questions for Alco. I was going to say, what? So we have our lovely assistants. This is Izzy, and this is Chase. They've been dating for 9 months. Fun fact. And today, I'm just kidding. They're pre-engaged, I think. Her parents are there. They are going to go and find you with questions.
I didn't have that on my bingo card for this, for this panel.
It's a mom's job to embarrass and job done. I'm so sorry.
I'm on his side. Don't look at me. I'm on his side.
We actually briefly met yesterday in the green room, and I kind of just forgot. I was trying to let you do your thing, bring all these kids in, and I'm like, Chase is about ready to pass out. He's like, I think I just peed a little. I'm like, oh, I forgot that we were even in there with him. I said, I did too. I don't know. It's very exciting.
Chase, when you're 18, you can move anywhere you want in the world.
Questions from the audience.
Okay, first, if you want to hurt her right now, you can.
Dad's
but
back too. So.
It seems like you have a very successful family. And I wondered if that was something that your parents instilled in all of you growing up, or if you kind of fed off of one another or challenged one another.
I think it's kind of a combination of all those things, really. We definitely, there's 6 of us. There are less than 8 years separate the 6 of us. So, it was pretty crazy. You can tell we grew up Irish Catholic, but because of that, we're really close in age. We had a lot of similar interests in terms of like pop culture and things. Not exactly the same, but the Venn diagram is there, and so we watched movies together and all listened to a lot of the similar types of music, and so we grew up very close, and for whatever reason, I don't know why this is unusual in big families, but we are not competitive with one another. And I think part of that is my parents were really good at not encouraging us to be competitive with one another. We rooted for one another, and we still do. So it made for a good environment for us to be creative. But yeah, my parents were definitely. My dad was, and mom were both very much like, you should do whatever you want to do, which I think was really helpful growing up in the suburbs of Missouri. That they weren't like, oh well, let's, they didn't try to put a damper on anybody's like dreams or anything like that, or but I actually don't. I prefer like job opportunities to dreams. Which, just as a side note, I tell people that all the time when they talk about achieving your dreams in terms of like being an actor or something like that. And I'm like, well, one advantage I have is that it's not a dream to me, it's a job, And so like it's even though I love it, I love my job, but it's like to have that sort of relationship to it, like this is something I need to put in tons of work and achieve, and not just something that's going to be like bestowed on me. But I think I got a lot of that from my parents. My mom was very into fostering the imagination and having us be creative, and so I don't know. It was a little perfect storm, I think, of people who were pretty smart and decent to each other and creative.
So what do the other siblings do? We know obviously what you and James do.
My sister is an attorney who has a law firm where she specializes in mostly in gender equality issues and rights, and she's a badass. She's my hero. And then my brothers, obviously James, and my brother Patrick also works in the entertainment industry, but on the business side. He lives in New York, and then my other two brothers are both writers. One of my brothers is a screenwriter who wrote Brightburn and Journey to the Center of the Earth 2, and a bunch of other stuff, and always has projects going. And my brother Matt has been a writer for Real Time with Bill Maher for like 12 years or something like that. Yeah, they're all writers. I mean, I think that the reason James and I work together the most is just because our jobs fit together the best. We would work together in other capacities if it were easier. And he's produced he produced one of my brother Brian's movies, and he and Brian have sold projects together and things like that. So yeah, we all ended up in the entertainment industry except my sister. I don't know how that happened, but we did.
Because she's the hero. She's the smart one.
Yeah, she's the smart one. That's right.
Hey, Mr. Gunn. 2 questions, quick ones. Who would you say is your biggest influence as an actor, another actor that you looked up to or inspired by to get into the business? And as you mentioned, you and your family watch a lot of movies. What would you say is your favorite genre?
Well, in terms of getting into the business, I feel like I wanted to be an actor before I even understood which actor was which. It's really I was very, very young when I developed an interest in acting, which is, I'm lucky in that way. I always was going for it. But my biggest influences are older actors. They're like I probably, particularly when I was starting, I would use as a reference more from Buster Keaton and there's a Preston Sturges actor named Eddie Bracken who if you watch him in some old movies, he's the closest thing I have to the actor that I borrowed most from to play Kirk. Actually, is probably Eddie Bracken. And Elliot Gould, who I mentioned, and who I has a little string of movies in the 70s that I think he's just out of this world. And but I've always just I'm really interested in the craft, so I try to study everybody and look at what is interesting about what actors are doing. As far as genres of movies, I just love a good story. and it doesn't matter what the genre is. That's what I think is fun about being able to bounce around and do different types of projects, is that, like, if the story's cool, it does not matter if it's horror or sci-fi or a kitchen sink drama. I don't really have a preference.
They're new with the microphone business, so there we go.
Hi, I'm a huge Gilmore Girls fan. Apart from Kirk, who was your favorite character of the Gilmore Girls set?
I think I'd say Paris. Yeah, I love. I mean, it's hard because you don't like to like make you don't like to put preferences amongst, like, these are my friends, so, like, I think there's so many people whose work on the show is so great, but the ones I'm most sort of consistently in awe of are Liza Weil as Paris and Emily Bishop as Kelly Bishop as Emily. I just they're both just absolute killers. I love everything they do on the show.
You guys did a little promotion for A Year in the Life on Jimmy Fallon together.
Yes, Liza and Scott and I did Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, that was fun. My brother was mad I was on the Tonight Show before him.
Take that.
And I just said we weren't competitive. He wasn't really mad, I swear. He wasn't really mad.
Hi. What would be your favorite scene or line from any of the Guardians movies that you were a part of?
Talking about my brother and working with my brother. So in the very end of the third movie, when we danced to Florence and the Machine, I'm doing Rocket in that scene, and my brother James does all the motion reference for Groot when he's dancing. So anytime Groot dances, that's my brother James. And so at the end of the movie, when we have that little, like, dance circle, that's me and him, and it was one of the last days of shooting. And so that I have to point that out as, like, the greatest moment of, like, sort of, it's like the cherry on top of the Guardians Sunday. But I could talk for the rest of the day about things I remember from any scene from any of the movies. They all spark special memories. Hello.
This thing work? Okay. So I was wondering, are there any movies from your childhood that maybe inspired you to get into acting, or maybe mutual interest from you and James that inspired him to get into acting? And also, on a separate question, any, like, movies that you like now that stuck with you, like, as an adult?
For me, I feel like I got more into wanting to be an actor from watching live theater than I did from going to the movies. My parents used to take us down at the Lake of the Ozarks. They'd take us to this repertory theater at one of the resorts down there, and we would go see plays. And it's one of my earliest memories of, like, seeing people on stage and wishing that I were up there with them. But there's all kinds of movies that we loved at that time, and we would tape them on the we had our VCR right when the VCRs came out, and if a movie came on that we knew that we liked, we would tape it, put it in our library, and there are just so many. I mean, I think at the time we wanted to watch everything we could, and we were really influenced by the old, what seemed like the old classics then, which were, like, movies from the 70s and stuff like that. But what was the second part of the question? Movies that influence. Oh gosh. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I love Robert Altman has a little string of movies in the 70s that are like California Split, The Long Goodbye, and McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and Nashville that are probably have a little pocket of what are like my favorite movies ever. They're all right up there for me. But I love so many different types of things. It's almost like, oh, you pick a horror genre. I love Carpenter's The Thing. I love I love Alien. I love Rosemary's Baby. I love I love weird Mike Lee movies, Topsy Turvy. I mean, I could just go on and on and on and on. I try to have some knowledge of as much as I can about movie history.
Do you remember the first movie you saw in the theater?
I don't know for sure what the first movie I saw in the theater, because I think I was probably so little that they were trying to stretch how young a kid could be when they brought him into the theater. So
he was a baby, it's fine.
Because I was the youngest, and so like, it may well have been Star Wars.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I would have been 3, so I don't even know if I would have made it through. Like, it's possible that I couldn't handle it and I had to leave in the middle. But I remember seeing like the first ones I remember are like Grease, and around that time.
Mine was Annie. I cried every time.
Hi. Was to work with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, with Kevin Bacon, he's the best. He's such a really good dude, and those days were so much fun. I mean, it's easy. It's cool when he's such comic relief in that show, and it was comic relief for us to even shoot the holiday special, because we had to like kind of cram it right into the middle of the shooting schedule for the third movie. We didn't shoot it really separately, but we came back from Christmas break and then spent most of our time shooting the Christmas special over a period of like a couple of weeks after we got back from Christmas break. And it was just a blast, and it was so much fun, and we'd been doing a lot of really heavy stuff. So to go and do that, have that like little interlude of light moments was great. And Kevin is just the best.
And so after you do Guardians, what do? You go to Disney World.
I did go to Disney World after Guardians.
There's a ride. Did you get to ride the ride?
I did. I got to ride the ride before it opened. And we went, and my wife and I went, but it's an awesome ride. Has anyone been on it? Nice.
Wow, I'm jealous.
Look at Disney World's doing well. Yeah, but we did it twice in a row, and they're like, they asked if we want to do a third time in a row, and we're like, we're good. Because there's a lot of it twists around quite a bit. But no, it was fun as hell, and I worked on the ride as well, because I did for Rocket what I always do.
And so it looked like maybe in some of the behind the scenes stuff that James had a hand in kind of creating it too.
He did. I know they consulted with him the Imagineers consulted with him on just about I think a lot of the aspects of the ride. So he had a hand in the designing of at least the creative part, not so much the technical. He's not a roller coaster guy.
Did he write it?
Yeah, I think so.
You think?
Yeah, he did.
they're teenagers and it's really early still. They worked all day yesterday.
So in Guardians 1 and 2, do you think Kraglin his relationship with Yondu became stronger?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. One thing you learn, even though it's animated, one thing we know from the holiday special is that Kraglin has also been around since he was younger. And my brother and I talked about that, about backstory of Kraglin, and I think that he was another, orphan essentially, who was a few years older than Peter, but who got linked up with Yondu as a guy on his ship from a very young age. But it's the arc of the character is that the second movie is kind of the prodigal son story, right? And Kraglin realizes that he's kind of been around this whole time, and he feels like Yondu hasn't given him the same amount of care or attention, and I think that they deal with that. I think that Kraglin comes to terms with that by the end of the third movie.
Hi, I am a huge Gilmore Girls fan. I think I've seen the show like 43 times all the way through. So Kirk is one of my favorites.
What, like 43 times?
I've kept count.
Is it 43?
It's 43. So Kirk's one of my favorites, and he has such great moments. I was wanting to ask about the episode where it's a film by Kirk. Did you film a bunch of extra footage for that, or was it exactly what we saw in the episode? Like, how much more of that movie was there, if any?
That's a good question. Not much. They edited it down a little. It was a little. I'm trying to think of. It's rare that anything would be cut on the from the scripts that we did. Like every now and then there'd be little shavings, but Amy was very, very good at timing it out to the last second, and everything. And if you Gilmore Girls fans, I don't know if you know this, but everything is 100% scripted. There's no syllable that's uttered that's not on the page, and. But that one, yeah, I think we shot a little more, but not much. Not much. You're going too far back for me to remember.
What is your favorite job that Kirk had at Gilmore Girls?
Well, what's your favorite job that Kirk had?
Well, I love the Babette and
The
oatmeal,
t-shirt maker?
obviously. But then I love the old lady rings that he would collect and try to pawn off. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that's fun. I like. Let's see what. I'm trying to think of because does filmmaker count as a job? How about that?
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to. It's kind of like I was saying with the actors. It's hard for me to pick like a favorite because each one like sparks a different memory. But for me, a favorite is more like, was it easy and fun? Than did it end up being funny and cool? But anyway, yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch.
Chop, chop, son.
What was your favorite line as Kirk?
I don't know.
What does something stick out to you this many years later?
My girlfriend is the whore? Is that?
Yes.
Hooray! People who've never seen the show are like, what the hell kind of show?
Netflix. You can stream it as
this?
many times as you want. Just keep saying, yes, I'm still watching Netflix.
Hello? How was it to work on Infinity War?
Oh, it was cool. I mean, first of all, I really like that movie. I like how Infinity War turned out. But it was a very interesting experience to do those movies. I thought it was just going to be sort of a little cameo at first, and it ended up being a lot more than that. I was on, we Rocket ends up playing a much bigger role in those movies, and it was fascinating. I don't think that I'll ever, I would walk on set and you've literally got, Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans and Don Cheadle and Mark Ruffalo and Paul Rudd and Brie Larson and I'm forgetting people, and Karen Gillan, who I knew got to go over Karen, and it's pretty astonishing to like be on set at the same time with all those people and just be hanging out and then shooting a scene together. It's pretty weird.
Run.
You can just say it if you want.
We can probably hear you.
She's raising her hand for me.
Oh.
I wrote it down. So first off, I love the Year in the Life, like a lot. And in it, we see Kirk crashing Friday night dinner. How did it feel to have Kirk in that setting, and what was it like acting alongside Kelly Bishop?
Oh, awesome! I mean, that's my favorite. I forget about that because I tend to, when people ask me for like my favorite scenes and stuff, I tend to not include A Year in the Life so much for whatever reason, even though it's obviously part of it. And that was one of my favorite things I ever did on the show for exactly that reason. Was that I had I think over the run of the original run of 7 seasons, I had 2 brief interactions with Kelly Bishop in that entire time. So, on screen, I know her. But being able to go in and be there for that family dinner and work with Kelly and them in that setting was awesome. I absolutely loved it.
Did you get to eat real food anytime? Was like diner food real? I always wonder.
No.
No. Okay.
I wouldn't. I try not. I mean, look, if you're gonna eat it, they make real food. But like the food would be real if I had to take bites. But usually it'd be like, I wouldn't eat this. We're gonna use it all day.
Run, Izzy, run.
So I know that your brother's taken over DC. So will you ever play Kraglin again?
I do not know. I really, really do not know.
I'm winking over here just in case. You can say whatever, but I'm just going to wink just in case.
Oh, no, yeah. I'm trying. I keep getting asked this question, which I understand, and I'm trying to come up with a better response that I don't know. So I could elaborate, but really I don't know does kind of sum it up.
We could just say there's a lot of timelines and things could happen or they don't happen. There's an answer.
I don't know. It's shorter.
During all of the times you've acted, do you have any favorite moment where everyone was breaking on set? Because I think back to Gilmore Girls and your scene doing the dance recital and how hard that was probably to get through. So even if it wasn't that, do you have a favorite moment of everyone breaking? You had a dance recital where like you had to go from birth to death and you're like twitching on the ground.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Well, that's the birth of man. You're talking about the birth of man was interesting because, like I said, there's never a word that you hear in the show that wasn't in the script. But those weren't words. That was just me doing movements. And in the script, Dan Palladino wrote that episode, and in the script it just says, Kirk performs an elaborate dance from birth to death called The Birth of Man. And that's it. That's all it said. And then I went, and so I literally went to set. I'm like, I don't know what this is supposed to be. And I went to set to shoot that scene. And I walked up to Dan and I'm like, what do you want me to do here? And he goes, yeah, just do what you do.
But besides that,
and I'm like, what? But it's like, just do something, make it funny. I was like, all right. And so that's what I did. I'm glad people like it because that really is. Now that's the one time on the show that I'm really just kind of improvising. I mean, that's just me doing what I do, I guess. I have no trouble not breaking during that. So I think that was pretty okay. I do remember once with the dogs. It was really late, but when Kirk's a dog walker and like he's trying to throw out random sounds to see if he can tell what the dog's name is, and he's just like saying so like what do and so and that I remember it being late and it was so ridiculous that we had a hard time keeping it together. But normally when actors could turn that off sometimes easier than they pretend. They're like cracking up too much because we were always late. We were always running late. So it's normally like, don't do that. We're going to waste time. Don't crack up. If you're going to crack up, leave, So anyway, we didn't crack up a whole lot on Gilmore Girls.
So we have time for like one more question to keep everybody on time, on schedule. Who will be the final question and answer?
I am also a big Gilmore Girls fan, and I know that throughout all of their seasons, they had several actors that played dual characters. And I know that at the beginning of Gilmore Girls, you started out like the
DSL, yes.
So I'm curious what the thinking, because like the harp lady, several characters, the Jess's Luke's ex-girlfriend, who is the mother of his child, like she had dual.
I can tell you briefly behind that is that Amy's father. Amy grew up with her father was an actor, and he would often. That's the way they used to do it a lot more. So he'd be on like I Love Lucy or some show like that, and he'd pop up as a small part on one thing and then a different character like the next season, and they would do that more often on shows. And I think when she likes actors, she likes to kind of like bring them back to do other stuff, which I think is pretty cool. Well, we actually covered this at the beginning of the panel, but I think that's actually the same character. He just had a different name the first time. Yeah.
So if anybody didn't get your question answered or anything like that, or you want to have a chat, Sean Gunn will be at his table, which is right around the corner, signing autographs. You have lots of photos.
Yes. Right out there.
Get your stuff signed. You can get a selfie, all that kind of stuff. So if you didn't get a chance to, or if you have more questions or you want to meet him, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming
guys.
to Evansville Raptor Con.
I appreciate it. Thank you all. Thanks for having me.
Everybody